And after the finale of the doc, like, I know I'm biased, but like I even get emotional like watching it. And then the song comes on. It's just like one of the things you just kind of take back and you go, whew, like, wow, that was like an experience. Like, I don't know. So I think that's why I'm like so proud of this project. It like depicts real people that you get attached to watching this thing and seeing how it all comes together. And you're just seeing the amusement industry in a way that I feel like hasn't really been shown before.
Taylor Bybee of Coaster Studios is here to talk about his new documentary, This Is How We Roll, which is all about the stories and roller coasters of Rocky Mountain construction. You're listening to the Tomorrow Society podcast. Hey there, thanks for joining me here on episode 153 of the Tomorrow Society podcast. I am your host, Dan Heaton. Hope you're doing great as we roll through November. The end of the year is going to be here before we know it. I am really excited about today's guest. I talked with Taylor Bybee, who is the owner of Coaster Studios, a YouTube channel that has more than 180,000 subscribers and really spotlights some amazing roller coasters and just all the different types of parks that you can explore around the country and the world. I love focusing on Walt Disney World, and it's a place that I went to so many times, but there are plenty of cool parks out there, and I enjoy the chance to be able to spotlight other parks and just some really amazing roller coasters that, if you're a coaster fan, would probably be very familiar to you. And Taylor does that really well on his YouTube channel. I've watched it a lot, especially in the last few years during the pandemic, where I found myself really gravitating towards channels that did a great job of showcasing parks that I'd like to go to someday or ones I've been to. He puts together a lot of vlogs from parks all over the country and even the world before the pandemic, and then just does a good job reviewing coasters and has a lot of other fun videos. His latest project, though, is a feature-length documentary called This Is How We Roll, which is all about Rocky Mountain Construction, aka RMC, the stories of how they've basically taken the industry by storm in the last 10 years or so. And it's only going to continue with coasters like Iron Gwazi and with the new Wonder Woman coaster at Six Flags Magic Mountain. And with so many more, they have had just such an impact on how coasters are done. Some of the examples of coasters they've done, like Steel Vengeance and Outlaw Run and Twisted Timbers and Lightning Rod at Dollywood, so many others that have really made a difference in the types of coasters that are out there. Taylor does a good job during this interview of kind of explaining why RMC is so innovative and why they've been able to really take charge. But what I really enjoyed about the movie, too, is it's not just kind of a look back at, let's go through all the coasters they've done and why they're cool. What really connected with me is some of the people. And we talk about it during the interview, like Fred Grubb and Alan Schilke and others involved with RMC, and how that came about and kind of what they are and what really has made them so successful. It's a really cool documentary that I can't recommend highly enough. You can rent or buy it on Vimeo. It was cool for me after seeing the film to be able to talk to Taylor and learn more about kind of how it came together and what his experience was like making this film with RMC. And we talk a little bit near the end about some fun questions about coasters and a lot of related topics. So let's dive right in and learn some more about RMC and Taylor's great film. Here is Taylor Bybee. My guest today is the director of the great new documentary, This Is How We Roll, which tells the story of the people behind Rocky Mountain Construction and its incredible coasters. He's also the owner of the Coaster Studios channel on YouTube and has directed other short films about King's Dominion and Kentucky Kingdom. It is Taylor Bybee. Taylor, thanks so much for being on the podcast.
Hey, no problem. I love you mentioning some of the other stuff that I've done too. It's been a lot of talk about This Is How We Roll, but it's been fun making videos about theme parks for the past almost 8 years now.
Yeah, I mean the short films too. I really enjoyed learning more about that because I mean King's Dominion I know is in your backyard, but not that close to me to learn about that. And then of course Kentucky Kingdom coming back, which is not that far from me. So it's great to get
Yeah,
some of that background too.
yeah, I had fun with those projects. The King's Dominion one for me was just me testing the waters, seeing if I could even like successfully do something like that. And each time I do a project like that, I learn a ton. And that certainly is the case for the latest one that we did, which I mean, by far was the most ambitious project I've ever done. But learned a ton. So whatever comes next, I'm sure will be even more ambitious or ridiculous. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, to do a full feature length documentary where you're shooting around the country and going, out to RMC and everything. So, how did you ultimately just even get started in wanting to do such a big film about, such a cool company?
Yeah, so little backstory. So I just recently graduated from college as a digital cinema major, and so as you can imagine, as a big finale for college, they want you to do like a senior capstone. And so because I had done those shorts on King's Dominion, Kentucky Kingdom, I had some experience in documentary filmmaking, and so they were very flexible as far as what we could do. They pretty much said, do whatever you want. And so I said, well, I would love to do another documentary. And I had a couple ideas floating around, but nothing I had really explored. And one of those ideas was actually a piece on Alan Schilke, who's one of the main characters in the film. And so I'd sent out some feelers just trying to figure out what was happening, and it wasn't going quite how I had hoped. And so I decided to steer a different way. I said, what about instead of focusing on Alan, we focus on the company that he's primarily involved in, which is RMC. And I had met a lot of the people from that company before through attending events like IAPA, which is the big trade show every year. And I had been up to RMC's facility. And so I had a contact there, which is Fred, the owner, his daughter, Amy. And so I reached out to her and said, here's an idea. What do you think? And she was like, I am so thrilled to receive this email because I've been wanting a film made about our story. Like it's literally, they've talked about how they should have a documentary made about him because it's like such a crazy story. And here I am. I didn't know everything behind all this. Like I love RMC. They're my favorite roller coaster manufacturing company. Their rides are incredible. And the only thing that I knew as far as their story was that they went from pretty much not being on the amusement park scene, and now in 10 years, they're the hottest stuff. So, of course, I wanted to know, how does that even happen? But I didn't know all the little details of how they got there. And so this whole film was also a big learning step for me, because you can only do so much research online. You have to actually talk to these people to find out exactly what happened here.
Obviously, you had an idea once you decided to do it on RMC of what it might be, but how much did it change? Because I'm sure once you meet Fred and Alan and talk to them, it probably becomes something much different even than what you were thinking.
Oh, absolutely. The film evolved so much from start to finish. It's actually unreal. I think back to like the first couple interviews I did, and you have an idea of where you want it to go, but it just evolved so much the more that you talk to people and you actually start to get a story out of it. I don't think I really had a clear idea of what this film was going to look like until probably, I would say, like January of this past year. And the film just came out in September. I started on it, for reference, it was like January 2020. So from start to finish, it was a little over a year and a half. Unfortunately, when I started the film, it was kind of right when COVID kicked in. So that kind of derailed things. But actually, when I think back on it, it really did help because originally we were going to start the filming process by going up to their facility and interviewing all of them. But instead, what happened is went out and interviewed a lot of the people that they're directly involved in. So theme park fans, locals, and then a couple companies that they've have ties with like Irvine Andre Engineering. Went out to Michigan to talk to them. We did big shoots at Dollywood and Silver Dollar City for those rides. it was really helpful hearing from each of their perspectives on this company, that it gave me a bunch of ideas of things to talk to them about. And so when we went to RMC in August of 2020, we had 4 days of just nonstop filming there, as well as Silverwood, which is their local amusement park that Fred started at. And that was a beast, just talking to all these different people, trying to get a story out of this. And at least going back to the senior project, what ended up happening is we had so much material that at that point, I think we figured out we are in way over our heads. This is not going to be a 40-minute short film. We're looking at a feature here. So let's break this down a little. So for the senior project, we made a 17-minute edit where it was essentially from Fred's backstory, which in the final film doesn't come in until probably 6 or 7 minutes. And then we stopped it after New Texas Giant when the family rides, which I think is like maybe 20 or so minutes into the film. So that section was there, but it was modified. There were things that in the final film were not in this version because we ended up going back and doing some reshoots. But what that did was it really helped kind of act as a proof of concept, that we were able to send that to a couple of places and be like, look, we want to film here. Here's our idea, and here's proof that this will work. And they saw that and they're like, wow, this is cool. So, I mean, every place that we filmed at was very much on board with making this happen. And so I'm really grateful that we were able to get so much support, because there's no way that we would have been able to do this otherwise.
Going around and shooting at these parks, because there's a lot of footage of, from kind of different vantage points where you start to see shots like, how are they under that spot and everything? So what was it like for you to go and actually shoot in those parks and try to kind of piece together? Because a lot of the coasters you're showing for a few minutes because you have to hit so much. Like, how are you able to piece everything together when you're there and think, okay, this is going to all make sense for my movie?
So at least at the start, I had no idea how it was going to fit in. My idea was, all right, I just know that we're going to want to cover this ride. And so let's just get as much footage as possible. And the whole idea, the whole mentality that I had for filming this is I want this film to be beautiful. I want to showcase these rides in ways that you haven't seen before. So every time we went to a park, I said, what can you do to get us backstage to film this thing from vantage points that you can't see? So that was a big thing. Like Silver Dollar City, if you go there, that ride, Outlaw Run, is so covered by trees that you can't see it from almost anywhere. At one point, I'm literally hiking through the woods, going back there. I'm with my guide, and I say, so how many people have been back here to film this? And he says, so far, you're the only one. No one has made it back here this far, because it's like so dense. Like, we're going down like trenches and stuff. I'm like, I am gonna like trip and fall here. Like, so it was crazy. And then same with Lightning Rod. We ended up doing 2 big shoots there, once before the retrack and once afterwards, which we didn't know about the retrack but when we started filming. And so actually that ride kind of went through a really big change. And that was something that, like, as things would get announced, you almost have to adapt to accommodate for that. So that was a big thing we had to do with Lightning Rod, as well as Stunt Pilot, which is really the film's central focus. And when we started this project, Stunt Pilot didn't exist. When we did our big shoot at RMC, like the first big shoot in August, it was 2 weeks before they had announced Stunt Pilot, and Silverwood wasn't even sure that it was happening. Like, I'm with the PR guy, and he's like, so what do you think about the Raptors? And I'm like, yeah, they're cool. And like, they're just like strategically, like pivoting around, like, just dropping hints that maybe something they're interested in, but they didn't finalize it until like right before. So that itself was the biggest miracle that ever could have happened. Like, how poetic is it that the place where Fred got started at is now the place that he's finally getting to build his own ride there, and his family can ride it, and it's right down the street from it. It's like, it's not the biggest or the fastest ride, but it doesn't need to be. It's the most emotionally impactful.
Yeah, I didn't realize that he had such a connection to Silverwood and just everything they've done there and having worked there and everything. But you mentioned Outlaw Run, and I want to make sure because, I'm familiar. I've ridden Outlaw Run, which is incredible, and it was, their second coaster. But some people might not be as familiar with RMC and iBox Track and what made them kind of take the industry by storm. So I'm curious, For the person that does not know that as well, like how would you describe why RMC is so revolutionary, or what they brought to the industry that kind of made it where now they're showing up everywhere?
Sure. Well, I mean, for the average park goer, there's a couple things you're going to notice when you ride an RMC. The first is it's going to be one of the smoothest experiences you can ever get. You know, you ride some roller coasters, they're going to bang you around a little. That is not the case with RMCs. Their main track type that they developed is called the iBox track, which the whole initial idea with that was, let's replace the wooden track that requires a lot of maintenance. So we'll replace it with steel, something that will last longer and be smoother. And that was the whole idea behind it. But what they realized is that this steel track can do things that the wood can't. And so it evolved to where they said, let's start reprofiling this. Let's take this flat turn and make it an overbank. And let's take that drop and make it steeper. And so with their first project, New Texas Giant, they're doing things that no one has ever seen before. They're ripping out this track, putting in new elements and things that people are watching this and they're like, what the heck is happening? How is this gonna work? There's a direct moment in the documentary where everyone's talking about, they're like, look, at the time, no one had ever done this before. And so when they're going out and pitching this sort of thing, everyone thinks they're sounding crazy, because for how long everyone manufacturing roller coasters is doing it one way. They're using a steel tubular rail. Arrow started that when they did the Matterhorn, way back when. And then it's evolved to Vekoma and B&M and Intamin. And RMC says, well, what if we made it a box, like a square shape? And if you ask Alan Schilke, the main designer for it now, he will go back and tell you, he'll be like, I didn't think there was any other way to do roller coaster track other than a rail. And he would have defended the tubular rail to the day he died, saying that is the only way to do roller coaster track. And here comes Fred that says, I have this idea, and he's going around IAAPA pitching it, and everyone says it's crazy. It's like the most incredible and like inspiring story of like the American dream, how he went from nothing to like just getting shot down over and over again. Everyone tell me he can't do it, but he's like, no, I know this will work, and just took off.
Yeah, I mean, Fred just is such a big character in the movie. And I mean, I knew almost nothing about him at the time. And there's this whole stretch where you're just showing all these times when he almost dies, or almost because
dude, he's crazy. He's a nut.
So what was it like talking to him? I mean, just about RMC, but also just his, he's crazy. That's the only thing I can say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's a country boy. He's from Du Bois, Wyoming, which, if you're unfamiliar with Wyoming, it's like 70 miles or like an hour and a half maybe from Jackson Hole, Wyoming. If you don't know where Jackson Hole is, it's south of Yellowstone. Yellowstone's in the middle of nowhere. So there's nothing there. And so I don't even know what his closest theme park would have been. I don't even think he rode a roller coaster until he was like well moved out of Wyoming, just because it's a desert there, in a sense. There's nothing out there in Du Bois. And so they have a very different way of life out there. His idea of getting that adrenaline rush is going out on four-wheelers and snowmobiling. And so they applied those passions into their rides. If you ask, like Jake will tell you that the Raptor track was specifically patterned after riding like a motorcycle or a dirt bike, which is like fascinating. It makes tons of sense when you think about it. It's a single rail going. So as you can imagine, when you are that passionate about doing those extreme sports, there's bound to be some accidents. And Fred should have died like 5 or 6 times. Like it's incredible that he's alive today. And so it was difficult interviewing him, because I'm hearing all these crazy stories, and the big thing that you can't do is react. You have to be completely silent, because they're telling a story, and any facial expression or anything that you make is gonna have them like say something. And so we'd be listening to the story, and then he'd finish, and so we'd be like, okay, we good? Cut. What the heck was that? That's when you go there and be like, what? Like he just said he was crashed a helicopter and the tip of his nose fell off. Just like insane stuff like that. And so, you hear one story from one person, and then you go ahead and you ask someone else. You find out who else is involved with that, and so now you have multiple people telling the same story that you can cut between, and that's how you build your edit. And so we'd literally go around and we'd ask every single person that we interviewed, "Do you have any Fred stories?" And there were a lot, and we end up only including a couple, but there were some crazy ones that did not make the cut. I'll say that.
Well, yeah, I mean, you mentioned earlier him going to IAPA and walking around, and I'm sure some people looking at him like, who is this crazy guy trying to sell this thing that is never going to happen? So, I mean, the fact that it did happen almost seems like a miracle that they actually, Six Flags took a chance on him and that they ended up making New Texas Giant and going from there.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. I mean, I know that those people behind Six Flags just took a big risk. You don't know if it's going to work, but if you look at it, I mean, Six Flags ended up being their biggest supporter. As soon as New Texas Giant was done, they said, "We want more." So then they immediately said, "Let's do Rattler at Fiesta Texas," and then one after the other, Colossus, Magic Mountain, Cyclone at Six Flags New England, and it just keeps going. And so like Six Flags may not be like have the best parks or anything, but you got to give them props for being risk takers and doing something and going with something that wasn't out there. And I think that also really kind of got more people looking at Six Flags as being like innovators for going with something like this when no one else would.
Now there's just so many. I mean, we just heard a new announcement, which just came out about Wonder Woman Flight of Courage, which is going to open at Magic Mountain, another Raptor, which I know is really similar to Jersey Devil, but it just keeps going and going right now with RMC and Six Flags too.
Oh yeah, I mean, even now we're in a post-COVID world, and there's 3 RMCs opening next year. I mean, granted, one of them was supposed to open 2 years ago with a Quasi down at Busch Gardens, Tampa. So say what you want about that, but the Fun Spot one is going to be awesome. I know when that was being discussed, people were thinking, no, it's just gonna be like, RMC doing a new family coaster, and here we are, like, no, it's gonna be pretty insane. I think it's funny because I love seeing competition in the theme park realm, and this is a park that's in Atlanta where you have Six Flags of Georgia, and there's Twisted Cyclone there, which is an RMC, and so this is Fun Spot saying, well, screw you guys, we're going to build a bigger RMC than the RMC that's already in Atlanta. So it's a good time to be a roller coaster enthusiast in Georgia, because now you're going to have 2 RMCs that are both going to be pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, there's a lot coming next year in terms of coasters and RMCs and everything. I want to make sure that we talk more about Alan Schilke, who, worked at Aero and designed X2 and did so much more before joining RMC. But it just seems like a real thinker and just kind of a unique guy. So I'm curious, what it was like to work with him and, shoot him skiing and just do all the different things you did with him on the film.
Yeah, he's a character. If I had to describe one word, he's a goofball. I mean, the dude is funny. I mean, he's a bit older. He's very elusive. He's a tough man to get a hold of, even when you have his contact information. I mean, it's tough getting a hold of that guy. And so that was the big one that we would call, like, the big interview that we got to get, just because it seems like for the longest time, like, we're reaching out to him. We wouldn't hear anything. Like finally, one of my friends, and actually my first camera for the project, his name's Scott. He was out visiting Alan in Utah with some friends of ours. And I'm like, dude, you gotta just ask him, like, is it okay if I come out there and like shoot this interview for the project? And I think he's out there and says, yeah, my buddy's Taylor, we're working on this documentary. Is it okay if he interviews you? And I was like, oh yeah, just have him reach out to me. He's like, he's been reaching out to you. But it was fine. So we ended up going out to his place. He lives out in the middle of nowhere, out in Utah, up in the mountains. And he has built an entire dirt bike course in his backyard. And it literally has wave turns. Like you can tell this was designed by Alan Schilke. And so we do his interview at his place with his he's got 4 cats, a chameleon named Princess Pickles. He's a funny dude. So and then afterwards he's like, I'm like, can we get some footage of you out on a dirt bike? And then he's like, well, do you want to ride with me? I'm like, I've never ridden a dirt bike. But when Alan Schilke says, do you want to ride dirt bikes with me? You don't say no. So I got to ride a dirt bike with him. I definitely crashed several times. I have a scar on my left wrist because I cut my wrist open flying over the handlebars. Pretty sure that's there for life, but that's okay. It's a scar I look back on with fondness. So yeah, it was very funny. And then couple months later, so now this is this past February, when you make a documentary, you want to edit at the same time that you're filming so that you're very much involved with, exactly what material you have. And so we had an edit in place where there were a lot of different gaps that were like, okay, we need to go back and reshoot stuff. We ended up going back to RMC in April to do like just pure reshoots, get Fred to talk about the T-Rex track. Now that Stunt Pilot's been out, Stunt Pilot, and do some shooting so that we can make it feel complete. And so one of the gaps that we need is we have all these Fred stories that were like, we really need someone who can talk about getting that adrenaline rush and like what that means to these people and what the difference is between like riding a roller coaster and doing these extreme sports. Like, why would you choose to do one over the other? That was something that we really wanted to help kind of bring it all together. And, since I think it would help clear up why the people at RMC are the way they are. And so going back and looking through Alan's interview, he had mentioned that he loves skiing. And so, I'm like, I love skiing. I want to go skiing with Alan Schilke. And so I'm like, hey, we're doing these shoots. We need some stuff of you on skis. Is it okay if I come get some footage of you skiing? And it's like, I just really want to go skiing with you. But so anyway, he's like, you're speaking his language at that point. He's like, yeah, totally. And so we went up to Snow Basin out in Utah, which is some great ski slopes. And so I stuck a GoPro on the end of a ski pole. And, I'm a decent skier, but I'm not like Alan Schilke. This dude is flying. So not only am I trying to keep up with the guy, I'm trying to get a good composed shot while also making sure I'm not going to wipe out or do anything crazy. And so that was an experience. It was a lot of fun memories there. And then for actually getting him to talk about stuff, because we can't recreate the original interview, I'm like, well, let's get him talking as we're going up a ski lift, which I'm pretty proud of that one because I thought that was like super creative. And we end up doing like a couple laps on the ski lift of him talking, but you never know because it's a moving background. So I don't know. I really like how all that turned out.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's nice to kind of have him in more of an active setting where you're not every interview, you're not just like, oh, let's sit in the same spot in the office or the house or something.
Exactly. So, one of the things that because I took a couple classes on documentary filmmaking when I was doing this project. And so one of the things that they talk about is you want to have scenes where you can actively seeing something happening. They're called like observational scenes. So instead of telling a story, you're just watching something take place. And I think that is at the core, the biggest difference between this documentary and the other ones that I've done. Is this one we say, I want to be there with these characters. And so, I mean, right off the bat at the beginning of the film, you're seeing Fred at a construction site. You're seeing, here's the sights and sounds that take place with this. And then later you see the family riding the RMC for their first time. You're getting their initial reaction. So instead of them talking about it, you can just see what they're thinking. And that's especially the case with Stunt Pilot later on. Like, there's only so much that you can say about something, but seeing the looks on their faces is all you need. And then later with them like visiting the construction site and all sorts of stuff like that. So that was something that I had a lot of fun with.
Oh yeah, and you referenced a minute ago Scott, who was closely involved, and then you worked with Sarah Anderson. So how important were the two of them? Because I've seen some of the behind the scenes where the three of you are talking about shooting and everything. So what was it like to kind of work as a trio on this?
Yeah, well, I mean, this film absolutely would not have happened without them. I mean, because and that's another big difference between this and other projects I've done is the other ones I've kind of done solo, where I'm the one who's doing every aspect of it, the pre-production, the production, post-production. And this one, there were a lot of different people involved. And so for almost all of the shoots, me, Scott, and Sarah are going around shooting this whole thing. So we had multiple cameras on everyone. And they both have, tons of great ideas and a wonderful arsenal of equipment that really allowed us to get creative with how we're going to shoot this thing. And so it was just really great to have people to bounce ideas off of. And I think that it's really helpful when you have people that have that same like mindset where we all just want to tell a good story. We're all good friends with these people. We love their roller coasters. We all just started off as fans, and now we're kind of putting in what we love to do and applying it to this. That we're now spending all this time with the family. We want to do their story justice, and I think that's what ended up making it the way it is now. Is the family was so supportive with having us out there, because to them it's just we're just a bunch of friends that are coming to hang out with them, and it just so happens that we're sticking a camera in their face every once in a while. And then after we were finished filming, Sarah and I were just sitting down, just making sure that this film would flow from start to finish and figure out like what it needed in order to make it the best that it could be. And then I had to bring in a lot of different outside people to help do the finishing touches. So it has an original soundtrack. It has titles that were animated in. It was professionally colored by a studio based in Baltimore. And so it was a lot of different people that came together to make this happen. All new original end credits, which are super fun. So it was a beast of a project. And I think that's why it took so long to do, but I hope it was worth it.
Yeah, the end credits are really cool with all the different animations or shots of all the different coasters and each one. And I'd love to hear a little more about how that came together, because you put that out as almost its own music video, like on your YouTube channel and everything. It was cool.
Yeah, so what happened is when I was in the early stages of filming, we'd barely done anything for this project. But one thing that I said is I want to have an original song for the end credits. And so I had met a music producer when I was at Magic Mountain named Johan Lennox, and he's got lots of experience like out in Hollywood doing this exact sort of thing, and he's a roller coaster fan. And so he came up to me and we just started talking a little bit. And so a couple of years goes by and he says, "Hey, do you have anything coming up? I'm just I have some downtime, I'm looking for some stuff." And I said, "Actually, what do you think about doing an original song for this? We don't know what the film is going to look like, but RMC's tagline is 'This is how we roll.' So I'd love for you to do a song called 'This is how we roll.'" And so we just started talking about like different what sort of vibe we wanted to give it, and what we ended up settling on is a song that was kind of about living your best life, going out there and just having fun, almost like Peter Pan, like never growing old. And that's kind of the mentality that they have out there. Is there's like, we're a bunch of older dudes, but we're still out there having fun, doing what we love. And so he came up with this really catchy song that we were essentially sitting on for like well over a year, because then it was about how can we put something to this to make it engaging. And so there was a guy on Instagram that I had stumbled across named Trackmaker. And the dude who runs it his name is Tim. He's in Germany. And he's a really talented animator that he had kind of combined roller coasters with these themed environments that were fit to what the actual ride was themed after. And so I shot him a message and said, "What would you think about doing the end credits for a documentary and doing every single RMC that has ever been built?" And he's like, "Oh, that's a beast of a project." But he was totally on board. He was like, "This sounds like so fun." And so that was something that we probably started talking about in May, and it was one of the last things that was done right before it came out, as making those end credits happen. So we had a lot of fun with that one, but it really was a great marriage of really, really catchy song with just like these incredible visuals. And after the finale of the doc, like, I don't know if I know I'm biased, but like I even get emotional like watching it. And then the song comes on. It's just like one of the things you just kind of take back and you go, whew, like, wow, that was like an experience. Like, I don't know. So I think that's why I'm like so proud of this project. It like depicts real people that you get attached to watching this thing and seeing how it all comes together. And you're just seeing the amusement industry in a way that I feel like hasn't really been shown before.
Yeah, no, I think it comes together really well and tells a story that even as somebody who follows the parks pretty closely, I wasn't that familiar with. Well, I have one last RMC question, which is if, I have listeners a lot that maybe haven't gone to as many parks or know RMC that well. So if they were like, wow, I really like the movie, Where should they start? Like, what are the like can't miss RMC coasters? I think I know the answer, but I'm curious for your like top few that you think people should ride.
Well, I mean, there are no bad rides by RMC, that's for sure. But I definitely suggest anyone who's listening, it's like go and try and figure out what your local RMC is. There's plenty across the country. If you're international, there's some in Europe. There's one in Japan, one in Mexico. So they're really scattered all over. There's if you live near a Six Flags park, there's a good chance there's an RMC there. And so I definitely say start with something that is nearby. But if you after you do that, you want to venture out and do some. There are some definite ones that I recommend. The big one is Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point, which if you've never been to Cedar Point, I think everyone at some point in their life should go, whether they're a huge roller coaster fan or not. Just the place is incredible. But they do have like the best roller coasters ever, but it's like a crazy experience. Do a couple days there. It's a water on all sides, beautiful setting. So highly recommend Cedar Point there. We talked a lot about Outlaw Run. That thing is phenomenal. Another great park there was Silver Dollar City, and same with Dollywood and Pigeon Forge. Lightning Rod being the only launched RMC. That's a pretty cool experience. And then if you haven't done one of the Raptors, doing a single rail, the best one, in my opinion, is Wonder Woman down at Six Flags Fiesta, Texas. And that's a great park to do in that because they have two RMCs with Iron Rattler, which is super unique because it kind of hops up on the wall and then drops back down. So yeah, there's a lot of good ones. My favorite international one is Hikuge out in Japan. If you make it out there, that is a beautiful ride. This big white imposing structure is really cool. But yeah, really you can't go wrong with any of them.
No, those are all good choices for sure, and a lot on my list. I don't know when I'll get to Japan, but definitely Steel Vengeance.
You gotta go Disney Sea. You gotta go Disney Sea. You gotta do it.
I do. It's on the list. That's like the number one bucket list park in the world for me. But okay, well, I want to make sure we talk about Coaster Studios, which is your channel that you've been doing for a long time, and I think is great. So I'm curious for you, like, what got you interested in just filmmaking or shooting videos even before you really ended up making a YouTube channel out of it?
Yeah, I mean, I started doing these little home movies before I ever had an interest in roller coasters. When I was younger, I think my parents were trying to figure out my interests, and so they're trying out all these sports, and nothing is really resonating. But I had found like my mom's old camcorder, and I'm just going around like making these little edits, making these small stories, and so I sometimes joke that I never stopped making home movies. Because then I just kind of put two and two together with this passion that I eventually developed for theme parks and roller coasters, which probably happened about like middle school era. So and then I started the channel when I was a freshman in high school. So it was the perfect blend for me because I got to do the two things that I love, and I didn't expect the channel to take off at all. And it definitely just happened just based off of I guess I had some fun ideas. I don't think I executed them very well, but that's okay because no one gets it right the first try. In a way, I think I might have been a little bit like Fred. I just was stubborn and didn't give up and just wanted to keep on trying. And so the channel is now up to like 180,000 subscribers or something, which is insane. And I still can't believe that it's gotten to the point that it is now.
There's a lot of channels that show roller coasters and theme parks and everything else on YouTube. But yet, like you mentioned, you've been able to kind of carve out a really strong niche. So why do you think it is about Coaster Studios or about what you've done? You know, you mentioned persistence, but just that's kind of made you be able to draw such a good crowd.
Well, I always describe the channel as a variety channel. I think that there's going to be something for everyone here. I try to do an array of content that there's new stuff coming out all the time. So you don't have to like everything that I'm doing, but hopefully there is something that resonates with you. So, we showcase our theme park travels with fun vlogs. We shoot a lot of footage. So if you're like a fan of just seeing how these rides look in these cool parkscapes, we have a lot of different footage options out there. And then we showcase our opinions, give some thoughts in like informational style, like recommendations for the different roller coasters and theme parks. So if people want to find out more about those locations, we have videos out there about those. We have some comedic based videos, which are fun. And there's the more serious ones with like documentaries and stuff. So I have a lot of fun with it. It also keeps me going because it means that I'm not making the same video every day. I can mix things up a bit. And so I think that's how I've not been driven completely insane, because I'm not doing the same thing every time. Every project is different.
I have to ask this because my daughter's 12 and she really enjoys the coaster parody videos from the channel. Yeah. There's one where you go back in time to fix time travelers spinning, which she really enjoyed. So I don't know. I'm curious about those clips. She asked me to ask you about those, which is her big focus. How did those come together? You especially did them for a while a few years ago, where you were doing a lot of parodies of with a lot of guests and friends and everyone else involved.
Yeah, I mean, the whole reason for this was I wanted to bring some humor to the channel, because I would, as I'm hanging out with friends and stuff, I would have we just have all these just crazy ideas and different things that I was like, well, what if we actually put these into practice? And so came up with these parodies, which is some fun narration, just kind of satirical, poking fun at some of these rides that we all love, that are all great, but pointing out some of the things that, you might notice whenever you visit. And then we had some fun with it. This is kind of, where it really was putting the filmmaking to the test, is shooting scenes with people that are most of the time just friends of ours. They're not professional actors, but we want to, we're enjoying ourselves. And so we came up with a bunch of ideas for different scenes about what would happen if this were the case, or I don't know. There's all sorts of stuff. But yeah, the parodies are fun. I had to put them on hold while doing the documentary, but they'll definitely be coming back soon.
Well, that's great. Yeah, they're a lot of fun. And like you mentioned, the variety, mixing that in with vlogs, and also really good filmmaking, like with drones and stuff, which you don't always see, which I can't imagine what goes into some of those, but like the off-ride footage is pretty cool to see.
I became a commercial drone pilot specifically so I could include a lot of drone footage in the documentary. So, and I know a lot of parks are, stricter when it comes to that, but hoping to continue to, showcase just some of these rides and stuff from a perspective that you never get to see. And I think a lot of, parks are kind of opening up to that idea a bit more. So it's definitely something I hope to showcase more in the future.
Cool. Well, I want to finish by asking a few questions, just kind of more miscellaneous questions about coasters and stuff, if you're down for a few more.
Oh, yeah. Let's do it.
Okay, great. Well, you mentioned it already. There's a lot of coasters coming out in 2022, many that were postponed for a while, like Iron Gwazi or, Pantheon, whatever else. So what are you most excited? What are the coasters that are coming next year that you're most excited to ride?
Well, I think the two biggest ones are the ones you just mentioned right there, with Iron Gwazi and Pantheon. It was a shame when SeaWorld delayed all of their big attractions because of COVID. And, I'm from Virginia, so Pantheon is in my backyard. I was just at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg this past weekend. It's still sitting there. It makes me sad every time I see it, but that thing's going to be fantastic. A multi-launch coaster there, forwards and backwards, doing some really cool things there. But aside from those two, I think the other one that will be really cool to see is that Fun Spot roller coaster going down to Atlanta, another RMC there. Because that park, there's not a whole lot to it. It's pretty much an FEC, a Family Entertainment Center. They have go-karts, and that's pretty much it. So them building a big old roller coaster like this will be pretty fun. That's
crazy to think about, yeah, because I always think of, that's kind of what I think about when I think of Fun Spot. I know that there are coasters, especially in Kissimmee and stuff, but it's hard to picture my local go-kart track with an RMC next to it.
I know, yeah. So that's why I'm really excited to see how that one. I love it when some of the smaller parks are put on the map.
Okay, well, this is probably why I really had you on, just for this question. I'm in St. Louis, and I have my home park, Six Flags St. Louis, which is, they added a lot of coasters in the 90s, in the 2000s. Their most recent one they added was Boomerang, which is actually 20 years old, more than that. We got a Mr. Freeze, we got American Thunder, we got a few things, but the wooden coasters are rough. The Boss, oh my. Streaming Eagle has nostalgia, but it's very rough. So if you were looking at that park, I know you've been there, like, what do you think they need? Like, beyond, they add some flat rides, they got tons of spinners, but like, what kind of coaster or what change do you think that they could do? I know I'm putting you on the spot a bit, but I'm curious, what is that park missing if they could make a change?
Yeah, I mean, while we're on the topic of RMCs and stuff, I think that Boss would be probably my biggest choice for roller coasters in the U.S. Like, one roller coaster in the U.S. to like convert to a hybrid, I think Boss would be fabulous. If they weren't to do that, then I think you could even just do the standard Raptor there. I think that would be a really good fit for that park. I think they just removed a water ride that you could probably put in that plot of land there. In a pipe dream realm that will probably never happen, I would love to see a hypercoaster there. Something over 200 feet with an airtime focus, like even a B&M route, or you can get hypers these days from a lot of different companies, Intamin, Mach. But knowing Six Flags probably won't happen. But I think something like that even would work very well there.
Yeah, because I've been there a lot, especially because it's like 30 minutes from my house. And really, the two ideas I had were, the main one was just to retract the Boss, because that really hurts. And they did do a change to it and remove part of the helix, and I think it's worse. I don't know how that was possible. Oh, it's painful. But yeah, my thought is, if you do like a hypercoaster, you could just, I mean, if they don't have the space, part of me is like, just take the Boss out. If you're really. But that's good to see, because that park, I went there like 3 or 4 years ago, where I started to wonder, things weren't open, and they had weird things with kids rides, where they had one operator for 3 different rides. I was like, is this park going to close? That was my concern a few years ago, but they're still around. So hopefully they can do something cool.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Six Flags, do something about it. I agree. I'm right there with you. I'd love to see something there.
All right. Well, one more question on coasters. I have not done, theme park fans, a lot of us don't ride as many coasters, but the Velocicoaster has been drawing so many raves. I have not ridden it yet. So tell me, as you're a coaster fan, how well, like, is it as good as everyone in the world is saying it is?
It absolutely is. That is a ride. I don't know anyone that has ridden that and been disappointed by it. And that is, people are hard to impress these days, but that ride is phenomenal. It is, I've done almost 800 roller coasters. It's in my top 10. It is that good. I highly recommend it. It's the full package. You got the theming, you got the amazing ride experience. A lot of those elements directly kind of inspired from maneuvers that RMC did first. Intamin went ahead and said, we can do that too. And so it is a perfect blend of thrills with theming. Visually, it's stunning. Absolutely, you got to do it. It's incredible.
Yeah, well, I'm excited just because I love that park. I mean, I love Hulk and Spider-Man and Forbidden Journey.
I love Universal. Yeah, Universal's, they're the best.
But to have that added to it, like as a new thing, is just incredible for me.
Absolutely, yeah. That was what I was very excited for, and it lived up to the hype.
Awesome. Well, just looking ahead to the future, I'm curious for you, either with Coaster Studios, what's coming up, and then also, do you have any interest or plans to do another documentary of some type down the road?
Oh, I'm sure I will. I don't have any ideas at the moment. I'm riding this train for a little bit. Coaster Studios took a little bit of a hit while working on the documentary, because that was my number one focus. And so, beforehand I was doing like daily videos, tried to, put out as much content as I could. And so hoping to get it back to that point where, it's a little bit more consistent, which, hoping that will work out. So I'm sure that there'll be more in the future, more big projects. I love doing them, but as of right now, I have no idea what that would look like.
No, that totally makes sense. I mean, doing a full documentary and now the release, I could see you wanting to not rush right into something big like that.
Hey, it's all right taking a little bit of a break. Hopefully it's well earned. I don't know. I don't mind. I'll tell you what I want. I want to go back overseas. It's since COVID, that's the documentary's kept me busy and everything, but I think it's also the timing of it was nice because couldn't do all the big international traveling like I would have loved to.
Oh, definitely. There's so many parks overseas. I mean, just in Germany and in England and just, Japan, of course, but you went there, I know, recently. But I think the documentary is awesome. So it was definitely worth the time. It's really worth seeing. So I'd love to know if people want to check it out or they want to check out Coaster Studios or follow you, like where are all the places they should go?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, if you want to find the channel, just search Coaster Studios on YouTube. We also have links to all of our social media there on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff. The documentary is available on Vimeo. You can get it under a rent or buy option. And that link is vimeo.com/on-demand/this-is-how-we-roll-movie. And if you see it, tweet me or tag me on Instagram. Let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Awesome. Well, Taylor, this has been great. Documentary is excellent. All it does really is makes me want to schedule a bunch of trips all over the country and world to ride all the RMCs.
I apologize on behalf of your wallet.
But thanks so much. This has been great.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This is fun.
Well, that was really fun. Before we finish, I want to mention something that I'm doing for an upcoming podcast episode. If you've been following the show for a while, back in 2020, I did a 2-part series on improving Epcot, and then I did another one in March, which I narrowed the focus a bit to improving Disneyland's Tomorrowland. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because a key part of these shows is input from you. And the focus this time is Dinoland USA at Disney's Animal Kingdom, which has some good parts to it. I like Dinosaur. I think certain areas have a nice atmosphere, but it could use a little help. So that's going to be my focus on an upcoming podcast in mid-December. What I really enjoy is I'll go through my ideas for Dinoland USA and changes I would make. But what I'd really enjoy from you is your input. It can be as simple as a few sentences. If you really want to go all out, you could record an MP3. You can email those to me, dan@tomorrowsociety.com. You can also send me a message on Twitter, TomorrowSOC, to give you a little more background on what I'm looking for here. So the scenario is basically that you have a role in making creative changes for Dinoland USA. Now, there's no specific budget, but you could go as big as you want. My idea is I'm going to sort of keep them reality. Now, not reality in the Chapek world, more like ideas that I think in theory could happen. So if you think of Dinoland, you've got Dinosaur, you have Triceratops Spin, you have Chester and Hester's, you have the old Primeval Whirl area, the Boneyard, and also I'm going to include the Theater of the Wild, where Finding Nemo the musical in some form will play again next year. Any of those areas or the land on the whole, what would you like to do with it? Or what would you like to see happen? It can be a small retheme or a small change. It can be a different attraction, a new e-ticket, or you can just basically start over with an entirely new theme inside the Animal Kingdom. So I would love to hear your ideas. If you could submit your ideas to me by Friday, November 26th. Again, just email me, dan@tomorrowsociety.com. I would love to hear your ideas, and then what I will do is I will respond to them directly on the podcast, because that's what's really fun for me, is digging into your ideas rather than just me talking for an hour or so about mine. I like responding to your ideas, which are always better than mine. So submit your ideas. It would be awesome to talk about them next month on the podcast. And if you'd like to help support the Tomorrow Society podcast, there's a great way to do so through Patreon. You can leave a small monthly contribution, get access to some really cool perks. Go to patreon.com/tomorrowsociety to learn more. And beyond just the Dinoland ideas, if you want to get a hold of me, send me an email, dan@tomorrowsociety.com. Follow me on Twitter, TomorrowSOC, Facebook or Instagram @Tomorrow Society. You can also check out the YouTube channel, which is you can find at tomorrowsociety.com/YouTube. Tomorrow Society podcast is hosted, produced, and edited by Dan Heaton. The music was written by Adam Hookey and performed by the Sophisticated Babies. Next time, I will be talking with former Disney Imagineer Ray Spencer, all about his career before and then joining Disney, and we really dig into his work on Disney California Adventure, specifically Buena Vista Street and everything surrounding that, including the Storyteller statue and the red car trolley, Carthay Circle, everything there, and some other changes to DCA. It was awesome to talk to Ray, and I can't wait for you to hear this show. Well, I hope you're all doing great. Go out there and get vaccinated, and let's ramp up to an awesome 2022 where we can all get out there to the parks and just enjoy being out there together with all these really cool attractions. Thanks so much once again, and I will talk to you again next time.